Hi guys, Bretsky here with a video sharing my tips for getting the most out of Rekordbox, sorting your music and transferring to a USB as quickly as possible. In this video I'll cover folders and playlists mostly, and at the end I'll have a couple of quick tips about how to get around those awful transfer times. Now I find Rekordbox to be very good at some things, simply awful at others. The negatives almost all revolving around speed and transfer issues. But if, like me, you use Pioneer CDJs, there isn't really a choice if you want to sort and beat grid your music so that Pioneer Gear can read it. So let's get right into it. First of all, sorting. I use playlists to sort my music, of course, but the first thing I do is sort my music depending on where I'm playing. I play in two types of venues, ones that require mainstream music, anything from a bar or club, right through the cheese factor to wedding discos or events with an audience with a really wide age range. Then I'll play at venues that have a very strict no cheese policy, and by that they mean no chart music, or at least not mainstream chart, so they go in my underground folder. When I turn up at a gig, I'll click one folder, and it's rare I leave it to go to the other. Folders are very important in Rekordbox. This is something I just didn't grasp when I first started to use it. I use lots now, and not only will it speed up things during a gig when you're looking at a tiny CDJ screen and scrolling through your tracks, it also makes transferring files, the Rekordbox Achilles heel, much more convenient, which I'll come on to. So let's look at mainstream first. I've got hip hop and reggae, mainstream 120 to 140, wedding disco and drum and bass stroke dubstep. You might be thinking, what more folders? But I have to reiterate this, as I've said, I've found that using folders is key with Rekordbox. The more you sort your music like this, the quicker you'll be looking at lists of relevant tracks to choose from at a gig, and the quicker you'll be able to transfer new music. So I go into my hip hop folder, and there's a reggae ska playlist, followed by loads of numbers. I arrange my music in one or two main ways. By the Camelot key system, which I'll touch on in a minute, and by beats per minute, or for you noobs, that's BPM. In the case of hip hop, I arrange purely by BPM. I'm not interested in what key each song is in, and they're invariably very similar anyway. Here you can see I've split my playlist into 5 BPM ranges. So here's an example of how that works in practice. Say I start my set with Berserk by Eminem. I know I can scroll through 10 tracks or even 20, and I know whatever I play next will be within range so that I can either beat match, or if there's a long intro I want to play, when the track eventually drops, the tempo will still be the same, so it will still sound like a natural progression. I also organise my small but growing drum and bass collection in the same way. Okay, so that's hip hop and R&B for now. Let's look at my mainstream house music. This I sort according to key as per the Camelot wheel. I'll post links where you can find out more about a program called Mixed in Key. You can do your own digging around, Google is your friend. This video isn't about harmonic mixing, but it's how I sort my house music. If harmonic mixing isn't something you do, and I do highly recommend it, then you probably want to have a folder for each house genre, which is how I used to do things. Okay, so here's a playlist in the Camelot key of 8. All the tracks in here are analysed as either 8A or 8B, so all play nicely with each other. But as you can see, I've also sorted into genre. Now in house music there are a ridiculous number of genres, so I've taken on about 3 to 5 main ones and just used those. I'm not categorising for other people, this system has to work for me, so I know what the difference between a dance club track is and an electro house track. Whether it's incorrect technically is irrelevant. I know the difference, and you have to label your genres accordingly, especially if that's how you're going to sort instead of the Camelot system. Now this works great because I not only know everything matches harmonically, I don't fall in the trap of playing the same songs in the same order at each gig as you would with a traditional playlist. Some nights I'll play 1 or 2 from each key before going on to the next one. Some nights I'll play as many as I like from one, sense the crowd are ready for a change and move on. Sure, I have my favourites, and you'll hear certain songs at every gig I play within about a 3-month timescale, but this will keep your sets fresh and organised. So let's look at how I organise my underground stuff, because this is slightly different. Well, this is all under the loose heading of house music, but it varies a lot more in tempo, so I've got 2 folders splitting my music according to BPM. Looking at the slower stuff first, I personally don't have that much music yet in my collection at this tempo, so I have wider ranges of 10 BPM, but the theory is the same as with my hip hop playlist. It's organised by tempo, so I can do a nice smooth set and warm things up with the slower stuff or keep a nice chilled vibe going. Because this music tends to be chill out or funky house, again, key isn't as important. Everything above 120 BPM is sorted the same way as with my mainstream house music in terms of keeping everything in key, but with my underground stuff there's such variations of BPM that I leave the genre to one side and sort according to tempo. The lesson here, guys, is this: organise your music into folders in the following way: type of venue, beats per minute, and then either again by beats per minute or by key or genre. It's then up to you how you organise your actual playlist, either by genre or BPM. One last thing, remember my reggae and wedding disco folders. They are just that, little places to put stuff where BPM and key aren't important, where I can just go and pick tracks that I like the sound of without worrying about the technical aspects or a discerning audience. This tends to be at open events or in bars at the start of the night, or of course at weddings. So now you've got everything organised. If you don't burn everything to CD, you want to transfer it to a USB, right? Well, as we know, that's where this program has a major flaw. It is ridiculously slow. To transfer what you see here, only about 15 gigabytes worth of music, I'm probably looking at a transfer time of about 45 minutes. That's for one USB. You also have to transfer over individual playlists manually. Unless you've used lots of folders, which is what we've done, is going to save a lot of time. Now if you only have, say, 4 tracks to transfer over, you're just going to drag and drop and put up with the slow speed issues. But often I'll have 30 new tracks, all sorted into different playlists. Do I want to individually hunt those tracks, drag them onto the right playlists on my USB, etc, etc? I used to, and it drove me nuts. So I have 2 tips for how to keep this manageable. Number 1, when you transfer a large number of files, drag over the folder, not the playlist. Often now I just transfer over the mainstream or underground folder and let it crack on. Not exactly fast, but all the playlists on my USB in that main folder will be effectively synced with my computer, with all the new tracks added. Rekordbox will also detect if the track already exists on the USB, which should speed things up a little. If you erase your USB at this stage, rewriting all this stuff is going to take forever. Okay, tip number 2. You've transferred the folders over, you have a USB that's ready to go, but you need a second USB that's identical. You're either going to use CDJs that don't have a link capability, so you need 2 to play from, or you're professional and want to have a spare USB drive if they do have a link. Well, at this point, I ditch Rekordbox, format the second USB and clone the first one. Now I use a Mac, but for Windows the principle will be the same. Your computer will clone a drive much faster than Rekordbox writes this stuff. Remember though, I said clone, not copy. You can't just drag and drop your music. There's hidden files that Rekordbox writes, and your USB needs them if your CDJ is going to be able to use them. Okay, that's the end of the video. This is just a system that works for me that's taken me a while to develop. I hope it's helped, but if you have any questions or tips of your own, please feel free to leave them below, and thanks for watching.